What's up? The black community cannot produce strong families when the men are addicted to sex. Every time I see a man who's addicted to sex and he's older in age, and I can tell he got a problem with just sleeping with women and sleeping with women, and just a lust problem, he always has a dysfunctional family dynamic that he's created. And a lot of times, a lot of these men were born into dysfunctional families, and they were they started to be dysfunctional themselves. But that's not really the problem that I'm really trying to get towards. How people were raised. I'm getting towards the mind of a man, and when he's addicted to sex. Now, I'm not a perfect person. I've had my battles with lust and all these things. But one thing I do know is that it starts with the man. However, the man thinks who the man is, a lot of the times, that's how the family dynamic will be. Obviously, you can have women who are evil and want to do bad and not a good person to be with. But I think that most of the time, it really is how the man is. And regardless if you want a family or not, there's so much more you could be when you're not addicted to lust and sex and pornography and, self pleasure, all these things. And I understand that I want my family to be a certain type of way. One thing I truly believe is that when a man is addicted to lust, there's a certain part of him that can't be expressed because of the lust problem. I truly believe the times when I was most addicted to lust and sex and just being lustful, these were the times where I was the most emotionally unavailable towards people. That is something that really goes into making you more awkward, making you where you can't be vulnerable around people and people don't want to be vulnerable around you. You could carry a bad energy about yourself and you overall just don't feel good about yourself, right? And so imagine you do that for years and then imagine you get with this girl and it was just everything was just out of pure lust. You have a baby. What type of family dynamic is that going to create? And I think that this is something that we just think it's boring and it don't matter and it shouldn't be. But I'm all about just trying to plan and trying to put yourself in the best situation, not only for you, but your future children. And one thing I look at a lot is how I'm going to affect my kids or the future generation. And once you start to look at how you're going to affect them, you start to really want to be a certain way as a man. And I know how to learn from other people's mistakes and other people's lives. That's a really good trait to have. Make sure you can observe other people and learn from that. So then in your life, when you come across the same thing, you know how to adjust and make it better where you don't go through that. Plenty of people I see that I've grown up with that got kids now, people that, are older and I see they have kids and um, they have that dynamic with them, they have their family, and I be looking and I be really understanding that the man and the woman need to be a certain way as far as character wise, not just trying to teach them right from wrong, but a character. That's the number one thing. This is something that a lot of older generation don't really understand, and it's because they just copy and paste what their parents did to them. Your character is the most important thing when it comes to raising your child. It is not actually it's going to hurt your relationship with your child when you are only in this authoritarian type of role where you only come in when somebody did something wrong. You only come in to try to correct somebody every time, right? And I've seen a lot of parents who have had children, and they just constantly beat their kids. They constantly was trying to uh like it was not a real. it was not real good communication. It was just, oh, you got to do this and you got to do that. And if you don't do this, I'm gonna beat you. Because forget about trying to talk to you and get you to actually understand why you're doing something wrong. But I'm gonna just make you scared because if you do it, I'm gonna beat you, right? And a lot of this goes hand in hand with just who you are as a man. And I think that I've seen good examples of good men. And I think a good man who has kids and he's genuinely a part of their lives, he raises great kids. He can raise extremely great kids just on a character basis. I'm not talking about financial success and all that type of stuff. I'm just talking about on the character of who that person is. That's why I feel like I have a lot of good traits in me because I had, you know, uh good parts about my parents. I've had good parents, you know, and my success will, I believe I'll be successful one day. And I understand that resistance or persistence will beat resistance. So I just have to keep believing in myself and keep going. Uh but that's not even the point that I'm trying to make. The point that I'm trying to make is that really focus on the character of who you are when you have kids. That's something that I've just seen growing up, that you see girls and boys and people who have kids like at 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, and they super young, and it's like, and I'm not one to judge, right? I'm never going to judge, but I am one to try to observe and be like, okay, how hard is that going to be for them? Do they know themselves yet? Right? So it's okay to question those things when trying to understand how you can have um a better situation for yourself. So I strictly look at a lot of people and observe a lot of people to try to understand how I can make it better for myself and how should I approach certain things and how the dynamic that I want in my family. I think every man should really think about that instead of just getting a girlfriend and then she getting pregnant and then y'all just have a baby and then you just go kind of with no structure, no type of plan. That's why I believe I do. That's why I believe I genuinely probably will have kids later because I do want it to be planned out. Just not entirely, but just for the most part to have a certain plan. That's the thing that we lack is that we don't want to make plans. And I'm not just making plans for a financial type of thing, but the character of who I want to be, the type of man I want to be. And I understand that um I'm not in the right I'm not where I could be. Let's just put it like that. I'm not where I could be. And I think that that's something we have to focus on. And the point of this video is just to have us understand that character, self control, self discipline is probably the most important thing when it comes to, I think, how you influence people. Because I keep using the example of, having a strong family. But just in general, man, it's not just your family who you influence, your kids who you influence, but it's literally everybody around you who you influence. So that's what black men need to focus on.